Welcome to Leaders in Action Looking Ahead. I'm Robin Trimingham of the Olderhood Group, and my guests today are Olderhood CEO Bill Story and David Vaughan, Senior Director of V Technologies and a Fellow of the American College of Healthcare Trustees. Today we're chatting about a new category of videos that we're going to be bringing to everybody. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Robin. Bill, nice to see you.
It's great to chat with you today, David. Tell us a little bit about some of the new healthcare categories and people that we're going to be able to bring to this series.
Late last year, I believe I had a conversation with Bill, who I've known for a long time on Bermuda. And it came up that there were new initiatives that were of interest, especially in medicine and in healthcare technology. And I thought, well, why don't I see if I can help? So I thought about this, and I realized that I have an entire cadre of people who are at the leading edge of many of these, if you want to call it the art of medicine, if you want to call it the science of medicine, if you want to call it healthcare economics. All three of those, I have a robust number of thought leaders and recognized global experts. And I came back to you and to Bill and said, would you have any interest in having a program that's focused just on that area? And the answer was yes. So the last couple of weeks, I started to put something together, and I'm very pleased with the response I have, and be delighted to go through a list.
Now, I know that you have been able to line up some pretty big names for us in healthcare. Tell us a little bit about a couple of these people.
If I go in order and I look at the art of medicine and the science of medicine, I have several people who straddle both of those areas. Mm-hmm. The economics of healthcare comes in later, but it's a much broader area. So when you think about the art and science of medicine, one of the people who jumps right to the front of the line is Dr. David Levien. And Dr. Levien is someone who I've known for probably 35 years. He's a renowned surgeon. He's been the mentor to more than 200 or 300 surgeons during the course of his career. And now he is the president of the American College of Healthcare Trustees. And when I was invited to join that organization, I was completely stunned by the number of high-profile and extremely bright and knowledgeable people that were part of that organization. So Dave Levien came up as the number one pick in my mind, and he's a Renaissance man. He is fantastic. He can talk about anything, and whatever he talks about, you'll find to be extremely interesting. I also work with a gentleman, and have for the past 11 years, whose name is Chocko Valliappa. And Chocko is the CEO of a company called the Chocko Valliappa Group of Higher Education Institutions in India. And he also is the CEO and founder of V Technologies, which is a company that started, I imagine, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when he and I first found each other, he had an idea of coming into the United States with programs that were designed to help the hospitals and help the physicians provide their services at a more economically advantaged platform. And I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? And what happened was that it turned out over the last 10 years that that particular opportunity presented itself because Chocko and his family own a number of universities and technical colleges in India. And the interesting thing is that about 30% of the students are on scholarship, and they are placed in majors that allow them to do extremely vital work in healthcare, medical billing, coding, and other areas. And they do it at near Six Sigma level. So when they graduate, they are running basically at 95 or 97% first pass accuracy. And they were brought into the university system because they were given a scholarship by Chocko and his family. I admire them greatly.
That's fantastic. I hear that we also have an esteemed guest from Harvard coming.
Oh, yes. John Quackenbush is someone who I have had great admiration for. He's a full professor at the Harvard School of Public Health in areas that are deeper than I ever thought that I would be getting about. But he doesn't laugh at me when we talk to each other. So I like him for that. And he is probably one of the top 2 or 3 experts in genomics and in healthcare analytics. And he's also a professor or faculty member at several of the cancer centers and at Harvard Medical School. So you'll get a kick out of him, because when I first saw him and met him, I thought, how did this guy accomplish this? He looks like he's 19 years old. So you'll draw your own conclusions, but he's very vital, very, very top of the game, and is I think one of the people who the audience would find to be fascinating.
You know, I mean, the whole purpose of Leaders in Action Looking Ahead, as we have discussed, David, you know, is to bring, I suppose you would call them complex subjects, complex topics, down to the level of people like me, who could then understand it in what we call common man speak. I think that's very, very important, because the other categories, which would be financial services, insurance, and life transitions, within those categories, the whole idea is to provide quality information, but to make it understandable to everyone. Across all of our networks, our demographics, you know, range from age 25, 30 upwards, all the way up into the retirement areas. We are enormous in North America, India, interestingly enough, and the Far East, principally the Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore. And I think the style that we have, which you're now very familiar with, David, you know, is to help the person explain it in that simple language. And I hesitate to use the word simple, but I do think it's appropriate, because I think the public wants to know about things like medical technology. Where are we going? Where are we heading? What are things like clinical trials? How is that being done? Telemedicine. I think some of those points are some of the things that you will be able to accomplish within the guest list that you're working with, David.
I certainly hope so. This is my 45th year. I started in 1974 with the HMO Act of 74. And I was fortunate enough to be taken under the wing of a gentleman who was coming to the University of Pennsylvania. And he was retiring as the senior executive vice president of Kaiser and becoming a chaired professor at Wharton School. And when I met him, I was president of one of the local chapters of the American Diabetes Association, an unpaid position, but volunteer position. And I had to run a meeting one night to determine which hospital within a 4-mile area was going to wind up getting an MRI or a CAT scan. And these are tens of millions of dollars. And you didn't really need to have 2 of them. 4 miles apart. So when I finished my hosting of the meeting, I was invited by this gentleman to sit down and asked if I wanted to have a cup of coffee and to consider joining his consulting company. And that was in itself a very flattering thing. But what I didn't realize was that along with that, I became president of the division of the consulting company. It was called the Corporate Health Division, where my clients were major Fortune 100 companies. And what had happened was that he was going to be coming to the University of Pennsylvania to chair the health economics department, but he wanted to continue having his consulting practice. And he said, "How'd you like to be involved in that?" And I said, "Yes." One of the best responses I've ever had, that I've ever made. Yes. And I said, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "Well, we're going to be the national experts on HMOs." And I said, "Boy, that's great. What's an HMO?" But the best part is I started with that very low level of knowledge, but I had the entire senior faculty of Wharton to be able to draw upon. So if I needed someone who was the chairman of insurance and risk, or the chairman of medicine, or the chairman of healthcare law, I was able to tap them and bring them in and make them part of the project, because the University of Pennsylvania had a internal policy that encouraged their full professors to do outside consulting.
Well, we're absolutely thrilled that someone of your caliber and expertise has agreed to partner with us to help bring these and looking ahead videos to everybody. If you're watching this and you have a comment or a question about the upcoming series, you can reach out to us at Bill, that's BILL @olderhood.com. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon. Welcome to Leaders in Action Looking Ahead. I'm Robin Trimingham of the Olderhood Group, and my guests today are Olderhood CEO Bill Story and Chocko Valliappa, who is the CEO of V Technologies and the Vice Chairman of the Sona College of Technology in India. Today we're chatting about the challenges of building a top technology college in India. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin.
Chocko, we are honored to have a chat with you here today. I understand V Technologies is widely considered to be one of the very best medical coding service providers, and that Sona College of Technology has a lot to do with that success. So start us off here today. Why was Sona College of Technology founded, and why is it special?
The Sona Group actually grew out of the Indian freedom movement in many ways. Our founder of our group, my great-grandfather, had roots with Gandhi. They were friends. And so that's how Gandhi actually landed up in his house, not wearing a shirt. And so when he wanted to start his textile companies that he was founding around southern part of India, he wanted to hire engineers, and he was told that he has to hire a Britisher to run it, because we were not a republic then, so we were a part of the kingdom, the UK, and that's when he said that I believe an Indian is as equally competent, and went back and trained a team to come in and seed engineers for his own textile ventures. So that's how it started, and coincidentally, where Tyagaraja Polytechnic, which is our genesis to Sona College, it actually started in Rajaji's house. Rajaji was actually the first viceroy to occupy the presidential palace. So, and he said that I'm in the presidential palace, you could take my home to start the college. So that's how we originated. And that's special in terms of the origination of that. And then we kind of have evolved along with the way India grew. In the sense that, it was industry, we had 5-year plans to become independent India. So a lot of industries grew, mechanical, automobile, all that kind of stuff that came in. when we became independent from 47 upwards till the 80s. In the 80s, 1984, we had a prime minister who was far ahead of his time in terms of wanting to take India into the superhighway of information technology. And there again, we have a piece of history there where our current chairman, Mr. Valliappa, was responsible for getting IT to India when he got a company called Texas Instruments to come in and start their operations in India. That was the first company to come in, and they actually bought the satellite dish. When we realized how technology was changing in the 90s, so we saw the Y2K coming ahead because, everyone was looking at the year 2000, and Y2K was coming in a bigger way. And India's IT prowess was just getting to start being noticed by the world then. So we said that we need to start a technology college with engineering focus, ready for India to go leap across to the year 2000 and beyond. So that's how Sona College originated.
Obviously, it's critical for Indian students to be able to attain accreditation within various technologies, but it's equally of importance to get global accreditation for those students, because as we all know, the Indian technology structure is enormous and is so highly respected nowadays around the world. So I would imagine then that Sona Colleges does look at it from a let's bring accreditation to our Indian students.
We're fully accredited. So we've been accredited right from inception. And in many ways, the accreditation that, for example, Tyagaraja Polytechnic has, Tyagaraja Polytechnic for many ways can be compared internationally to, say, Rensselaer Polytechnic. It's just the name is a polytechnic, but the caliber of students that we get can surpass any engineering graduate from that angle. So, and in terms of accreditation of Tyagaraja Polytechnic, it would probably be the only polytechnic in the world which has got 3 times accreditation for 5 years each, which is the part of the Washington Accord of accreditation. So the Washington Accord is where all the academic institutions have come forward, and they've agreed on certain levels of accreditation. So which means that where you study doesn't matter. You can transfer credits between one institution and the other. And SONA as well. So we've been autonomous. So the universities confer autonomy on you. So if you've got certain threshold levels of sending so many students over so many years, undergraduate programs is valid for graduation in many universities around the world. And then we also offer PhD programs within SONA as well.
So this is an amazing accomplishment. Your family must be very, very proud of this. How does graduating from SONA College lead to international job opportunities?
Learning is one. Knowing your skills, core skills is one, but very often soft skills get left over. So we've taken up Japanese, for example, and we see a huge opportunity because if you look at the age of a nation, that tells you where the nation is going. Especially, I think you have olderhood projections, so from that angle. So Japan is probably one of the oldest countries in the world, and so we targeted our students to learn Japanese, and Japan actually goes from N5, which is the entry level, and N1 is a native speaker. So we have our students now doing many in N5, many in N4, N3. We've actually, since we are an autonomous institution, we brought Japanese into the curriculum. So sometimes the students don't have even a choice. And so some of our students are now in Japan, and they're earning much higher. So the scale between our student getting a job in India in a Tier 1 company and getting a job in Japan is almost 6 times higher.
Wow.
do you find that, is there like a percentage of those graduates who will remain in India and work in, Bengaluru or Chennai, or versus those who actually do go overseas to work, for example, Japan?
Actually, this year was a little bit of like kind of a washout in many ways, especially in Japan, because Japan became a bubble. But that's opened up lots more opportunities now. Japanese companies cannot take the students to Japan, but they're offering job opportunities in India as well. So just today, there's a company called Capgemini, which is a worldwide leader in IT. So they decided to come and recruit students who know Japanese from Sona with that particular skill set. So that's one. And then plus we also have, India's IT prowess is well known. So we have our students who are working in, who have joined top tier IT companies like Infosys or Wipro or TCS or Cognizant and many others. So they've all got jobs there, and then they're placed out. And a lot of them are sent overseas to work as well.
Well, I think it's just fascinating to hear how your university is helping improve the lives and opportunities for people all across India. You've been watching Leaders in Action. Join us again for more from Chocko, Valliappa. Welcome to Leaders in Action Looking Ahead. I'm Robin Trimmingham of the Olderhood Group, and my guests today are Olderhood CEO Bill Story and Chocko Valliappa, who's the CEO of V Technologies. Today we're chatting about the difference between training and educating your workforce. Welcome back, Chocko. It's great to chat with you again.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Thank you.
So, can you explain to us a little bit about the mission of your company, V Technologies?
The mission of V Technologies is to globalize success to make lives better. So, because very often, successes are in pockets, and then if you can't have a society where you have pockets of great bright economies and places with a lot of people with poverty and things like that. So that's what we try to do, is to try to become global, but try to make action everywhere so that it's a win-win. It's a part of an Indian ethos in our philosophy called the Artha Shastra, where you say that when you do business, the other person should win as well. So otherwise you lose, because you can't have a loser and then one winner.
Well, we're big believers in win-win relationships at Olderhood as well. I was reading a little bit about your personal philosophy to education and training, where you say that education is a journey, and I really liked that. Tell us a little bit about the V Technologies business model.
V Technologies, we basically work with customers in trying to solve their problems, especially in the services side. So we focus a lot on engineering and healthcare. In healthcare, we work with some large hospitals, about 150 hospitals around the US. And then we also work with large payer groups in terms of analyzing risk stratifications, basically from a population health management perspective. And on the engineering side, we do engineering design services. So these are for architectural, mechanical in buildings and in product design as well. So we find the product and then do that. So this is from a customer standpoint. So then we understand what the customers want, and then we need to train the employees. And if you look at V Technologies' organizational chart, it is actually baffling for many people because our entire organizational chart is turned upside down. So in many organizations, you will find the board of directors and the CEO or the chairman at the top, and you'll find the employees at the bottom. In our organizational chart is a flipped organizational chart where the employees are on the top, and then all the other managers are supporting at the bottom. because so if you're a CEO, you're actually supporting the entire company. So, to reflect that. And also the other point is that because the number of times our employees touch our customer is much, much, much more. I might go meet the customer once a year or twice a year, but our employees touch the customer literally on a daily basis, like every hour, because every time they do a job and they send it across, that is there. So that's why training becomes very, very key in terms of what the customers want. So.
I think that's always a good idea, that the chief executive is not necessarily the person on the phone every day, but is available. And if there is a need to speak to the chief executive or senior management, etc., fine. But I think we're all great believers in letting those who know what they're doing get on with the job. And, yes, if there is an issue, so be it. But I think it's a great idea to have the technician person at the forefront. And I do like the idea of the customer focus, because I think in today's world of technology, as technology is advancing so rapidly, the idea that the technician is on top of it, and therefore you can talk to that person immediately, all things being equal, but that you can get answers, you can get solutions, that you don't have to go through a bureaucratic tunnel to find, the answer. So I agree. I'm greatly encouraged by that point, that your business model looks after the customer. And I'm sure every company in the world says that, but it kind of sounds to me like your structure delivers on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also empower. I mean, one of the biggest problems when a company gets large is that they become a professional company and they lose the entrepreneurial world, the entrepreneurial spirit.
Oh, true.
If you, I think I was listening to the founder of Traveler City, and so he was sharing, saying that one of the first thing he did when they were spun off from American Airlines was to say that they want to go work in a garage. And he was asked, why would you go work in a garage and where you have the entire American Airlines head office here? He said, no, the kind of thinking which comes in when in a garage, you kind of have the all-in mentality. That's what I call it from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And that gets missing, and it gets diluted when you grow larger. So one of the things we've actually done is we formed something called a micro company, and every 15 employees form their own companies. And they name them like your team, like a soccer team. And if you look at sports, every sports team's got about 15 people becomes a team. So that's the same thing that we've inculcated here. So, and we have leaders in each of those teams for HR, for operations, for quality, for compliance, and so that's how the team works. So and then there's a team leader, and then our managers act as mentors for these teams, and there's a competition for a prize of $1 million at the year end. So.
Oh, very good. That's a very interesting business model. I was reading that your company is actually involved in some fairly cutting edge projects in the aerospace field, and also something to do with wearable technology and the University of Toronto. Tell us a little bit about this accomplishment.
India's got I'll address it on 2 points. So on the aerospace side, so India's got a program to become the lowest cost destination for launching space launches.
Wow.
And in that mission, they started looking at how they can get the cost lower. So they were buying motors from France, and the price of those motors were very expensive. And that's when they started asking Indian manufacturing companies to look at it. And then Sona College actually took the initiative and then started designing and developing and manufacturing these rocket motors. I mean, Sona has become ubiquitous with BLDC, brushless slotless motors that they've now we've got them approved. V Technologies has got some of those motors approved for the Indian defense productions, and then we're going to be launching those motors for some of our defense projects in the Make in India campaign. And on the wearable technologies things, it was announced like literally a week ago with the University of Toronto, which is a forefront. And then there's a sphere of 8 other universities around the Toronto area. And there are about 18 hospitals in and around the Toronto area. So all of this is going to be on wearable technologies. So the world knows wearable technologies today as a smartwatch, or like, some of those like the Fitbits or the rings that you have. But the technology is becoming, so vast that you could actually have many more sensors and many more ways to treat diseases, to treat illnesses right now. And a lot of times when people go sick, the doctors don't know what they are. Like, in the old allopathy, in the old Ayurveda way, people would feel the pulse and tell you what's wrong with you. But today you have to go tell the doctor what's wrong with you, and then they do the scan and things like that. But they don't have the history of the data till then. These kind of wearable technologies and smart textiles is to embed sensors in the yarn, and then weave it or knit it together and embed all of that. So to treat various things, it could be urinary disease, it could be to analyze diabetes from sweat. So it could be many ways, like, heart monitoring is one, and then finding out other alignments, like, could be to treat neuropathy, like, finding sensations. How can you create sensations, stuff like that. It could be treating deep vein thrombosis, things like that. So.
Well, we're just about out of time. Chocko, thank you so much for chatting with us. I'm sure our viewers will be very interested in your company and what you've been up to. You've been watching Leaders in Action. If you have a comment or a question about the series, you can reach out to us at Bill, that's BILL, @olderhood.com. And we look forward to chatting with you again soon. Take care, everyone.